welcome to another episode of the DNA of a Professional. I am so excited that you are here because, as you can see, we have another guest with us today. I am so ready to jump into this conversation with my new friend, Dr. Ebere Sonoiki. I cannot wait. I've been following her journey, like lurking from behind, and then I finally pressed follow on her Instagram, and her story is amazing. And I think that as we are journeying through this thing called life, and especially the path that we're going on for our career, it's so important for us to remember that when that path is no longer serving us, when our careers are no longer serving us, then it's okay to pivot. And so today we're going to talk about not being afraid. Set aside that fear of pivoting, especially when it means that you're going after your dreams and pivoting into a career that you know is meant for you. And so before we jump into that, I would love for you, Dr. Sonoiki, how we want to do this today? Do you want to be Ebere? Do you want to be Dr. Sonoiki? You tell me, because I am all about giving the most respect to the doc. So you tell me what you want to do today.
No, you can call me Ebere. Totally.
I love it. I love it.
I'm not very big on titles, so I
love that. I love that. I love it. Well, Ebere, let's jump in. Will you introduce yourself and tell the listeners a little bit about you?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be here. I do think that what you said about it's okay to pivot is the message. And I feel like if we ended this podcast now, like that message will preach any day, anytime, 24/7, just across different time zones, time frames. Like, seriously, it's okay. But my name is Ebere Sonoiki. I'm born and raised in Nigeria and came here to the U.S. In my teen years, and it was a completely different experience for me in terms of what life was like in Nigeria for me, not growing up with my parents and just kind of being in a space of just a despondent state of not truly knowing who you are and truly understanding what you carry, to being in a space where I felt like I was beginning to discover who I am. And that's because I was surrounded by the right community in terms of like teachers that really had an interest in teaching and didn't shame you because of your family background or what you knew or didn't know, etc. And so that was really when my journey kind of started in terms of like me discovering like, wow, Ebere, you are brilliant. You know, like you have the capacity, the DNA, to essentially do a lot of great and amazing things in the sciences. And so that was kind of like how I started exploring. And I'm like, I knew I wanted to do something in the health space, but I struggled a lot with understanding what that really meant. And I had more exposure to research through internships and summer opportunities than I did in the clinical space. And so I went ahead with the PhD route, the research route, because one of my biggest fears is doing something that I didn't really feel called to, or that I didn't want to clock in and clock out of my job. And I know like there are seasons where we do that. And it's okay if it's a season, but if it's kind of like a lifestyle, and you don't have any other place where you are really being able to express out into humanity what it is God has put inside of you to express, it can be a very frustrating space to be in. I've seen that. And I don't, and I'm like, Ebere, you're going to choose something that you know you're called to. And so I did, my PhD, did research, and halfway along my PhD program, I was like, crap, like, I feel like there's a part of me that, there's a huge part of me that's not showing up with me to the workplace. And I knew that going the clinical route, the MD route, was going to be the part that utilized what I call all my superpowers, but it was not the easiest decision to make, for sure. So I gave myself I spent 3 years just trying to avoid it. I spent 3 years after a PhD trying to just kind of figure out a way to kind of make my PhD life sexier to me and more, like I'm like, we can do this. We can paint this up and do it up. And it just wasn't working.
Uh-huh.
I'm glad that with the most amazing family support, principally from my husband, who was like, babe, if God has called you to do this, let's go, let's do it. I mean, mind you, I've been in school for 5 years already at that point, right? And that has its implications in terms of like earning power, not being able to make as much because you're in training. But yeah, so that was kind of like how we started the journey. And I was 37 at the time where I started med school. And
Say that one more time, Ebere. You were what age when you started med school?
I know. I was 37 when I started med school. I know.
That's amazing. And I hope you guys are keying in to this story. And that right there might make you go back and rewind, because it puts this into perspective as we're going to get into the conversation in the time frame in which Ebere is thinking, this isn't it. Yeah. This is not really where I know I need to be and where I'm called to be. And I love that, that you're really connecting with what are you called to do, and that you and your husband were in alignment to say, go do what you are called to do. But I just want those of you who are listening and you're hearing this story, we're not talking about in our 20s having this conversation. This pivot and starting med school happened at 37. Okay, go for it. I just need the people to make connections to the story here, because it's amazing. It's amazing. So again, I think if you guys are, as you're listening to this, and I know many of you, I didn't even have to remind you to get your notebook, but if you haven't gotten it yet, you can already tell this is the episode to go get it. Because if you're even thinking about a pivot, if you're even thinking about making a shift, the first thing I need us to key into was that age should not be a driving factor. Age should not be a driving factor. It is simply a number. You guys, if you've been listening to the podcast over the seasons, I actually went back to school to finish my undergraduate degree in my 30s. So being an adult learner and deciding to make those big milestones and steps in your life that are going to impact your career is something you can do. You can do, especially if it's going to help you chase your dreams. So, okay, Ebere, so 37, started the journey, and then what? Because I know you're at a different place in this journey now. So then kind of what happened?
Yeah, so I think, a lot of times if I were to, when I think about, because right now I'm finishing up medical school, right? I'm in my final year of medical school. I know. Graduation 2024, right around the corner. I'm really excited. And when I think about the process, from the time that I decided to go on this path, my mind is constantly blown about how things I worried about were not really a thing. That, like, for example, age, you talked about age being one of the big things. That was bigger to me than I actually admitted. Like, we always say, age is nothing but a number, and we kind of want to embody that ideally. But realistically, if we're really honest with ourselves, I think there is an aspect of this voice underneath, and that has been kind of a theme and a script that we've borrowed from the society, historically, being women, that begin to show up and seep into our decision-making process over time. And age is a big thing for me. I mean, in my younger days, I never imagined that I would still be in school at 40. I just turned 40 in 2023. And I remember I used to look
Welcome to the 40 Club. Welcome to the 40 Club.
It is the best club, girl.
Yes.
But I think, so it's the age part. And then there is the part about the real life implications of having a one income household. I don't try to trivialize people's concerns, because these are huge concerns. It was a huge concern for me, right? That has implications, especially if you have kids, right? I have 2 boys. And so then you also, beyond that, you have to save for your retirement. You have to save for anything. You have to leave, something for your generations to come, because coming from a family where I didn't have that. One of our biggest, goals for my husband and I is to be able to leave something behind for our kids. And so that means that you also have to take advantage of investment. And with investment, you're talking about timing. So all of the time that you're investing in getting training and not making as much, kind of has its opportunity cost, right? And so I think, but one thing that I have realized over time is that what you're called to do, it's not just about, there is something about timing versus time, right?
That's good. That's good. Break that apart because I think you're onto something there. There's a big difference between the two. Break that apart for us.
And I think that, people say, well, Ebere, you've been in school, like, okay, you spent 4.5 years with your PhD and now another 4 years with MD. That's a lot of time. And I'm like, but the timing, because there is something about when I did my PhD and when I'm doing my MD that goes beyond just the chronological time. I'm a person of faith, and there is something called kairos, meaning the ordained and predestined time that you're supposed to be doing a thing. And that means in that timing, you have the grace you need to carry things that you may not be able to carry if you did it in a different timing.
Oh, that's so good.
There are people that you were meant to meet. There are visions that were birthed just by simple conversation you had with someone in the right timing that led to a fruit that you didn't even know, was going to happen. And so I think a lot of times when we think about time and we think about it from a human perspective, there's a tendency to box ourselves in because we're not seeing beyond, because we can't. We have limitations as humans to be able to truly comprehend what God has in store when it comes to timing. And so I've learned to just kind of move as I feel led based on timing, understanding and fully appreciating that the consequences of my yes is beyond my understanding. All I have to do is say yes. And regardless of my age, regardless of my parental status, regardless of my marital status or relationship status, all of those things should not, even though they do, should not have a bearing on any of that. And as women, everyone has gotten really good at telling us what we should be doing at different junctions in our lives.
Times in our lives. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so at every junction in your life, there is some kind of principle or ideology or people in your life that might shame you for saying yes to whatever that dream or whatever that calling or purpose is. Yeah. And I'm blessed to have a support system that has really said yes along with me. And so in the time that I've started med school and now that I've finished, my support system has been the most. I mean, you ask a lot of med moms that are med. I have 4 moms that are med students in my class.
Wow. That's awesome. That is
exactly.
I wouldn't think that. I was actually thinking like, oh my goodness, you were, with all of these folks who've come right out of undergrad and going into med school and they're, late 20s going in their 30s. But that's awesome that you've got a few other moms. That's really good. I love that. That's
and
good.
I think I had it easier because my kids are older, right? My oldest is now 13 and my youngest is 9. Versus I had, my colleagues that had like toddlers, the kids were much younger. I had 2 of them that had kids during pregnancy. Okay.
Wow.
Exactly. So,
my God.
But the support system that we had, we gave each other just by having our community of 4 of us, was huge. And just even knowing that you're not alone, you're not going through whatever this challenge is, or you're trying to navigate something around childcare, or just even the fatigue of having to be active in this space and come home and be active in that space as well. Or, just knowing you're not alone, just the mental support you get from that is huge. Right. And then my husband, like you've been following me on IG, I brag about my husband all
all
the
the
time.
time. He gets all the praise and all the props, y'all. Let me tell you something. I'm like, I feel like I want to give him a high five. I want to give him a hug because he gets all the praise. But I love that. I love that. And I also have a very supportive husband. And so I know what that feels like when your wife and your mom, but then you have this career, or as you are building and still training and studying in a very demanding field that demands of your time, and you're not always as present in all moments in which you may want to be, and knowing that you have a supportive, husband, partner, spouse that is like in lockstep with you because you were in alignment on the dream anyway, is amazing. And I know we all don't have the same journey. We all don't have the same path. And so I like where you were going with this around community, because you may be saying right now, okay, Tareka, okay, Ebere, thank you, but I'm not married, or I'm single, or I'm divorced, or, whatever that may be, whatever your situation, relationship status may be. But that doesn't mean you have to be alone. And I love that you were able to find community and find that support system, so that when you were ready to make that pivot, and you made like a big pivot, like that's a hard pivot. She wasn't just like, oh, I think I'm going to go into finance. I'm going to go. She's like, I'm going to add 4 more years on top of this PhD program. I'm going to add 4 more years and go to med school. Like that's a whole nother space. My daughter's in law school right now. She's actually her first year of law school. I'm just like, I don't know how law school and med school students do it. Like, where's your brain capacity coming from? Like, what? So I'm in awe. I'm absolutely amazed by it. But I know that that's got to take so much of you, and you can't do that alone. So, we talked about age, and that not letting that be a barrier, not letting that confine your dream, right? And because everyone, you're so right. As women, we hear, what are you supposed to be doing it when you turn to be a teenager? What are you supposed to be doing at 16? What are you supposed to be doing at 18? What are you supposed to be doing at 21? Oh my goodness. Okay. You're coming up on your 30s. You must have babies yet. You get married. Like everybody has, expectation of what you're supposed to be doing. And I just love that in the midst of all of this, you decided to like really just tap into what you knew you were called to do. And you said, I'm going to press forward. I'm going to do it. But you didn't have to do it alone. And I want you guys who are listening to know that community is something that you have to seek. It doesn't always just fall in your lap and come to you. That's why networking is so important. So you can build, relationships that are mutually beneficial, so that you don't feel alone in these times. Right. So I love that. I love that. So you have the community, you're with these other women in the program. And so now here you are last year. Right. And to me is like the beginning of another time. And you just, Ebere just spoke a whole word about time and timing. If you missed that, go back and listen, because we could probably sit in that in a whole episode and talk about time and timing. But I love how you made that very distinct, because I think sometimes we see time as like a blocker. 24 hours in a day. You know what? I fall victim to this sometimes. And even when I'm coaching and I'm working with clients, I'll say, there's 24 hours in a day. If you're supposed to be sleeping 8 of them, how many hours does that leave you? We start to break it down. But a lot of times I think we feel like time, we're trying to save time, or we're chasing time, and we're constantly trying to figure out how to make time management work. But that's so different from such a time as this. And we talk about timing, and that timing of something and doing something in the right timing is very different. And don't miss out on your opportunity to actually pivot into your dream, because you are not connecting to this being your time. You hear people say that, like, it's your time, girl. This is your time. That's timing, right? And we have to embrace that. So I love that. I love that you connected to timing.
And I think, just to kind of extrapolate, how do I know it was my timing? Or what, before I took the step,
Mm-hmm.
There's something about, they say hindsight is 2020. When I look back
Uh-huh.
now and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is definitely the right timing. One, I was worried we were kind of like not in the space that we wanted to be financially from the time that
Mm-hmm.
we knew that I was going to go back to med school. We
Uh-huh.
tried to cut down our budget and kind of try to move things around to make sure that we were going to be fine. At the
Uh-huh.
time that I was starting med school, the plan was to submit my resignation to my job at the time.
Uh-huh.
And we were like, okay, well, we'll just kind of, God's going to make a way. We'll figure it out. Were we going to
Uh-huh.
be fine? Yes. Was it the ideal? Were we in the space that we wanted to be ideally financially? No, it wasn't. But
Right.
one of my mentors, which again, bringing back community into this
Uh-huh.
equation, challenged me. And at that time, COVID shutdowns had already happened.
Uh-huh.
Med school classes were happening predominantly online. My
Mm.
job had gone predominantly remote. I had
Uh-huh.
a really supportive boss who knew that I was making this move for med school. So that transparency was there.
Uh-huh.
Everybody was on board. And my mentor was like, how about you try giving it a shot? Like try working med school, try holding on to your job while you start med school and see how it goes. And I'm like, you're cray cray.
You're crazy.
Like what? Why? Who does that? Like
Who
why?
does
No, I'm a practice kind of babe. Like no, we're not doing that. But it's funny when you get the right seed kind of planted in you, like, and then
Yes.
it doesn't leave you alone. And I just sat there and I'm like, wait, I mean, I
Yeah.
have everything I need to give this a try. And I'm coming from a research background. I'm a scientist. I love to try things out. I'm like,
Right.
well,
Like
let's
hypothesis
technically
is
try
your
this out.
thing. You're all about a good
Exactly.
hypothesis.
We're like, okay, this is the hypothesis. Let's try it out. And this is a
Mhm.
sign. If it's not working, but that was kind of like what started that process. And my boss was
Yeah.
okay to kind of let's see how it goes because,
Right.
yeah, this would be very helpful for my family and I financially if we could make it
Mhm.
work. Well, guess what? I was able to work first 2 years of med school. I would not have been able to do that
Wow.
if COVID shutdown hadn't happened. If my
Yeah.
job didn't go remote, I probably would not have been able to do that
Right.
because if I had to go into school,
Mhm.
physically and I had to go into work physically, I can't be in two places at the same time, right? But being remote meant I can be in two places at the same time, right?
Yes.
And so
Timing.
it's
Timing, right?
timing.
Like, don't get me wrong. There's nothing great about the pandemic. That was
Nothing.
such a treacherous time. We lost so many people.
Yeah.
It just was that we just, as a country, we were not prepared for a
No.
pandemic like that. That being said, that was a timing that you took advantage of that. And
Yeah.
look what it yielded. Look what it
Exactly.
yielded.
And it wasn't the plan wasn't, oh yeah, let the pandemic hit, then you're gonna start. It just happens again. There was something about when everything just kind of happens in a way that works out in your favor, right?
Mhm.
It's that example. And then the other things like just even because of the shift in work practices, my husband's job went completely remote. He's into consulting. So
Okay.
imagine being in consulting and having to travel a lot to being a
Right.
consultant and not having to travel a lot.
Right. Right.
Because all of your clients and all of the stuff you're doing now is
It's
remote for the
both.
most part. That
Mm-hmm.
was such a game changer in terms of like being able to do pickups, drop offs from school when I'm like long hours in the clinic, like
Right.
things that we worried about, honestly,
Right.
Tareka, were like, so God just came in and just literally like set things up in place where they were not that much of a big deal. And it was almost like, see, I told you, I got you.
Yeah.
I'm going,
Yeah.
like I told you, like, so between you and I and all of the amazing people listening, I think once you begin to overthink things and we like to feel like we're in control of every
Right.
single aspect of the equation. And
Yep.
you're not going to be. And if you're
Mm-hmm.
waiting for you to be able to have an answer for every single area and have your check mark and all of that stuff before you move, you're going to end up not moving at all. You're going to end up not pivoting at all, right? And I
Yeah.
think the most important thing is once you know within you that this is what you're supposed to do,
Mm-hmm.
take the first step in front of you. That's
Yeah.
it. That's all you can do. You take the first step unfolds the next step, And you begin to truly understand that you can't solve tomorrow's problems with today's grace. You can't.
That's
You might
so
be able to
good.
see you might be able to see tomorrow's problems from today, but you can't necessarily solve that problem from today, because daily bread. I'm a daily bread kind of person. Like, I got
Right.
what I need today.
Right.
I got everything I need to solve the problems of today. Tomorrow, when that time comes, we're gonna figure it out.
We'll
And
figure it
it's
out. But
always been the case.
today, I'm operating
Exactly.
in today. And the reason why I want to sit with that right there is because I believe in work-life harmony. So, you hear a lot of people talk about work-life balance. And I actually think work-life balance is pretty difficult, almost nearly impossible to achieve.
I love that. I'm gonna borrow that now.
It's so different, because to me, if you say work-life balance, you're trying to take 50-50. You're trying to take half over here,
Yeah.
divide yourself and put 50% of myself into my work and 50% of myself into my personal life. Problem is, you don't have two lives to give to. You have one. So you don't have a personal life and professional life. To me, Ebere, you have one life, and you have personal and professional activities that need to operate harmoniously together. They need to be more integrated. So you may hear people talk about work-life integration, work-life harmony. That's where I'm a huge proponent, because
Yeah.
it's only in those instances that you can have peace in being present in today. Because work-life harmony is about being present and being present in all the different dynamic areas of your life. And I can only imagine, you are wife, you are mom, you are med student, you are colleague and peer, you are still researcher, right? And especially as you were working and doing both, your day-to-day job as a researcher, right? And then having to go to school, what was that going to look like? You had to be in so many different places. There's no such thing as 50-50. You had to really take percentages of your time and show up and be present in those moments. And I think that's, if you want to learn how to pivot into what your dreams are, you have to be willing to find harmony and integration in all the different things that are happening in your life. And what I feel like we're hearing from you today is that you also have to be willing not to miss out on that timing. When that timing comes up, you're presented the opportunity and the blessing to move forward. Like,
Yeah.
literally, you had a checklist of signs, and God was just telling, like, look, here are these things, right? Here are these things that are happening, and they all impact everyone in different ways. But you have an opportunity to step into the calling over your life. So let's go do that thing. And you're going to I'm still providing, because you're still going to have money, because guess what? You're going to be working remotely. So that is going to have a little bit of financial difference in outlook. Your husband, who usually is traveling all over the place, guess what? He's going to be home too. And he's going to be working. So it just, all those pieces in the midst of what some would say was just such a treacherous time.
Yeah.
There was like joy and progression in that for you. And I think that's phenomenal, right? Because it was your time.
Yeah.
Right? It was your time. So I love that so much. Talk to me a little bit about the plan forward. And I say that because I think so many professionals, men and women, because I also love to really work with working parents. So moms, dads, caregivers, period. When you are a working parent, we have unique challenges. You have school-age children. You're getting ready to finish med school, but then I'm believing after that, you're going to go off and do some type of residency program. That's a whole nother journey. Yeah. And you've got a kid who's 13. So like, we're in this middle school, about to be probably freshman high school.
Yeah.
You got a 9-year-old who's about to hit double digits. So there's all these things that are happening. How do you, as not even really just as mom or as wife, but just like as self? Because I think so many times as women, we feel like, well, what hat do I have to put on? Take off the hat and just think about you, right? Which is so hard for us to do. You're like, girl, stop playing. Let me. Like, you got to take that hat off And just think about Ebere for 2 seconds. And what does that look like? Like, you've conquered all of this, which is amazing. But now you got to go into a residency program as your family is going to go through some milestones, if you will. How do you prepare for that time? What does that look like for you?
I think that's a really great question that I'm literally working through all that logistics right now. And the one thing this season has taught me is the importance of not making decisions out of fear or out of a poverty mentality or out of like a not enough, like a limited, like you walk into spaces and you feel like you're just getting what you can get kind of thing, scarcity. So from the time that I knew med school was going to be a thing for me, I was not willing to compromise family balance from day zero.
Love it.
And my conversation with God was like, okay, well, you called me into this space. You also know that there are these other spaces or this other space that even with my mom hat off, this is a space that means so much to me as a bearer.
It's like a core value for you.
Exactly. No one is asking me to put my family first. I'm putting this is a bearer's hat on or no hat. I love, take the hat. Like,
yes, we always want a hat on. We always want a hat.
Exactly. Like, let me just think about myself. What brings a bearer joy? My family brings me joy. And so that means in my decision-making process, I want to consider my family because that's important to me. And so the med school, I only applied to one med school.
Really?
That's
scary. Talk about not operating in fear.
Right. And people are like, and it's funny because when I also applied for my PhD program, I also only applied to one program. And I remember going to the interview and they were like, so which other programs did you apply to? I said, oh, just you guys. And they were like, oh, so do you think you're that great that you're just going to get it? And I'm like, no, but I do know that this is where my family is situated right now. And if it doesn't work out, I'm going to find out what I need to do better to apply next year. But it's not out of like cockiness or I'm feeling like I'm all that. It's just, this is what works. And because I'm a person of faith and I'm very, when I feel like God is saying, do this, then I'm like, okay, well, this is what I feel like you're saying, do. It doesn't mean I have all the clarity, but at the same time, I know what I'm not supposed to compromise in the process.
Right.
And so for me, when I started med school, we had just moved 25 minutes away from my school, my current school. And I was like, Lord, this location would make sense. We moved here even before I really decided. We moved here like a year before the whole med school process started. And I'm like, it's not a coincidence that we just moved here.
Right.
There's a reason, right? And so with that, in mind, I applied to 3 med schools in the primary cycle. Then there's the secondary cycle where you have to turn in essays. And I didn't even bother applying to the other 2 med schools, like the secondary, because I'm like, you know what? So I didn't complete the application for the other 2. I just completed this one. And now that it's residency time, the same kind of principle, even though this time around, I wasn't as bold to just apply to one residency program. But I knew for sure, I said, okay, well, with residencies, unfortunately, many people go to med schools in the US and then have, no matter what the chances are, they have some kind of chance that they may not match into a program of their choice, which is absurd to me, especially given the shortage of physicians that we have. But that's a topic for another day. So with that mindset, the biggest fear during residency applications is not matching. You don't want to not match. You didn't come all this far to not match. So people tend to just go crazy with applications. There are these statistics of if you want to guarantee or like increase your chances of matching into anesthesia, which is where I'm going, you have to apply to X number of programs. Well, I am not interested in moving to certain places. And I'm not willing to compromise. And I do, because I know this is my timing, I know that God has gone ahead of me and made the things that need to work out. Right?
Yeah.
This is not, like move according to your faith, yo. Like I'm just talking about how I move, how I work. Right? And so here we are with residency. I didn't apply to a lot of programs. I applied to the programs where I really feel like my family will not be compromised. My last thing I want is starting residency programs and having to navigate like ridiculous moves and changes to my kids' schools and all community while I'm also navigating residency. Residency is brutal. First year residency is like a whole different ballgame, right?
Yes.
So the decisions that my husband and I made, and I made him a part of the decision. He didn't need to, he didn't ask to be a part of it, but that's how we flow, right?
Right.
We're like, okay, let's think about logistically what living here is going to look like and what living there is going to look like and what that means for us. And he's like, babe, just, sometimes he would feel bad. He's like, I don't really want you to like compromise on your career because of XYZ. And I'm like, it's not a compromise in a bad way. Like, and I think that's the thing. It's like this whole idea that we're independent and we can do whatever we want. If you are going to take advantage of community and support, then you also have to incorporate your community and support in a way that's healthy.
Yeah.
Because that's your way of also pouring love back into your community and support. And I'm not saying, compromise or settle for less, whatever. We define less in different ways, right? And so just because the program is ranked the highest does not mean that the other program that's not ranked as high is less than. No, because that could be for you the most important program for you in your life at that time. So everything is about context. And life is give and take, and you kind of have to weigh the pros and the cons of different decisions that you're making. And so in that setting, for me, I didn't go crazy applying to multiple different residencies. And in my decision-making process, the residencies that are like top on my list are the ones where we have a way of navigating the family aspect of things as we go into that space.
Got it. It's so interesting because some folks are like, oh, this. I already know you guys are blown away for the conversation, but some of you might not be trying to go to med school. And I get that, right? But this is this is Ebere's choice. This is her career, her dream, her calling, where she wants to do. What's yours? Right? Whatever that looks like. And what I love about this piece, because, you're listening, I can just hear a committee saying, well, wait a minute, we're the only ones. Well, you think you all that? And I love that. I'm gonna say there was like this little bitty corner piece of like Ebere that had a little person on her shoulder that said, well, kinda, but no. Kinda. But that's not what this is about. This is about a bigger thing. This is about my family. This is about, the direction and the calling over my life. But like there was this little bitty piece on the shoulder sitting there.
Yeah.
Said, yeah. And guess what? Did you get in? Clearly, because she's finishing her. Clearly, because she's finishing up her 4th year here. So I just put that out there. But what I love about it is that you were very clear in your decision making. You're very decisive about it, and you were strategic about it. And no matter what your job search is, so let's say you're inspired by this, you're empowered by this conversation, you're ready to kind of start thinking about what does that pivot look like. I love that you did some research to say where would I go and why. Right? I'm not willing to move 3 and 4 and 5 states away. I'm not uprooting my family to do that. It doesn't make sense right now. It's not the time for that.
Yeah.
There may be a time for it, but it's not right now.
Exactly.
So what does that look like, and how can I be strategic? So if you are that mom, you're that dad, you're that working parent, and you're thinking about, I know I don't like where I am right now. This is not what's pulling on me. This is not what I'm called to do. I desire to be in this other field or this other industry or a different company. Fantastic. But be strategic about it. You don't have to go apply to 100 and 200 places, right?
Yeah.
Think about where you want to be and then apply within that framing, within that space. I just went through a job search, and did I have a lot of applications? Yes, but they were in the same space.
Yeah.
And what that did for me is that I wasn't getting pulled into interviews and having conversations that did not serve me, that I knew I would not be happy. I didn't want to go there. No, I was very specific about what this next step in my career was going to be. And there wasn't a negotiation about that. Right. So I love that you're so much in alignment with what you need personally and what your family needs. Right. In order for you to go into this next season, and where there were some non-negotiables, but you were confident and strategic about it. And I think when we make a pivot and we go after our dream, because see, here's the thing, Ebere, I think when people hear the word dream, they're like, oh, pie in the sky, and, you know, stop chasing your dreams, girl, get real. And I'm going to tell you that it's not about chasing, but there's a difference between chasing and pursuing. And for me, the chase is like playing chase like kids, and you're just chasing and running around and you have no strategy about it. But when you pursue something, when you unapologetically pursue a dream and a goal, that thing is strategic. It's got precision to it. You are consistent and constantly focusing on where you want to go. You go after that dream any day, right? You don't have to chase it. But you better pursue it and unapologetically do so. And the only way we can be unapologetic about something, in my opinion, I'm also a woman of faith, is that you got to be in alignment. It's hard to unapologetically pursue something that you're not in alignment with the overall calling of your life. But when you already have the covering, or like, you know, the permission, if you will, go after that thing. Go after it and watch the covering and the provision happening, right? In that time frame. Oh, that's so good, Ebere. I love what you have taken this conversation, because so many wrestle with this, and they're sitting in jobs and in careers that they just they disgusted with it. They don't like it. They hate it. They have these terrible feelings about it. It is impacting their mental health. They have anxiety around it. It makes them angry. And then they bring that home, right? They bring that to their children. They bring that to their spouses, because they are in a position that they don't feel like they can pivot. And I hope this episode is freeing to you, that says it doesn't matter about your age. It doesn't matter about the how many years that you've been in that particular company. It doesn't matter that you have children. It doesn't matter if you're married or single or divorced. What matters is when you get clarity about what you're supposed to do. And when you have that clarity and you just can't let that go, that's what keeps you up at night. This pulling on you that this is not right, but I know what is. Go get that.
That's it.
Right?
That's it. And I think I wanted to also clarify this, because, you know, people hear my story, or someone with a similar story as mine, and maybe what comes across as a glamorous aspect of things. And I don't want to glamorize this in a way that kind of make people think that there is not the work aspect. There is a non-sexy part of this journey that is, you know, that is just, that's just the nature of the journey. There's nothing about pivot that is comfortable. This is a very uncomfortable process. And so if you are embarking on this process, you have to embrace that discomfort. You have to know that it comes with a package, and you have to know that it's worth it. And you have to also know that it's okay for different people to be at different stages in the pivot process concerning your pivot. So in my situation, the first time that I had the conversation with my husband about going back to med school, dude almost had a heart attack. He was like, bro, I thought like we were doing jobs.
Oh no, he was like, wait a minute.
Like what? Like, you know what? Like, I was doing job interviews to go into the pharmaceutical space. And I just was like, this space is not for me, but we're going to do what we need to do. We've been one income household for X number of years. It's time to kind of get in there and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, the interesting thing, many people might stop there and say, yeah, my husband, my partner is not supportive. They're not very supportive of it. And then they kind of maybe use that to build a case against their partner and just stop the conversation. But no, Like, seriously, this is, if you're about to make a pivot, you're about to make a big decision. It's actually healthy for someone to be on the other side and truly challenge that decision.
Yes.
Be like, just because someone challenges it doesn't mean that they're hating on you or they're not supportive of you. So you have to be open-minded, right? In a healthy way. And my husband was initially concerned about where are you doing all this? You know, like, for better, for what? Like, why are we having this conversation right now in 2020? You know, so I think it was 2019 at that time. But over time, I would say in a matter of 2 weeks, I didn't even try to nag. Like, it was not a conversation about, and that's the thing about, again, being a person of faith, and both of us are very much in, you know, we are both strong people of faith. I'm like, well, Lord, if you called me to do this, you're going to have to talk to him, because that's your problem. Because
I say that sometimes in my prayer, like, that's your child.
You know, because, like, listen, because this, no, we're not. If he's not on board, I'm not on board, because I love him now, not because I don't, you know, I can't move on without the support, blah, blah, blah.
1000%.
But he came back two weeks later and was like, you know what? I got the confirmation I needed for me. Like, he was literally like doing yard work, and he came knocking on the window because it was a Saturday and I was still in bed, and he came knocking, and I thought something was wrong. He's like, babe, I got the confirmation. I said, yeah, this is the, you know, and it's like, again, did I hold the 2 weeks?
Right now?
You know, like, I know, right? Right? And but the 2 weeks that it took him to come on board does not mean that he wasn't supportive of me, or wasn't cheering me on, or none of that. Like, so I think it's important to appreciate all of that, and that just because you've also decided to take the step does not mean then that all of a sudden all of the challenges goes away. But the beautiful thing is you've been equipped with everything that you need to handle the challenges. And if you truly allow yourself to grow through the challenges, you realize that the challenges, my time management skill right now is like off the roof, because I became a mom first year of my PhD program on, you know, and it wasn't planned.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't planned. But so for me, I thought, oh crap, like, this is, we're done. We're not, I mean, who does it? But I leaned into that, you know, the challenges, and it yielded a whole different aspect of skills and things that I've carried on through the rest of my life in terms of being able to manage my time effectively and all of that stuff. And so, but nothing about this process is easy. Nothing about it is comfortable, but everything about it is worth it.
That's good. Oh, everything about it is worth it. And it's worth it because this was your dream.
Yeah.
This is what you knew you were called to do. And I love that. And I thank you for saying it's not always beautiful. I thank you for that. It's not always easy. It doesn't come without challenges, and making, you know, we're humans and we have emotions, and I'm sure you've had hard days. You know, girl.
I mean, we don't need to have a part two. Like, we can just talk about the challenges. Like series 3 or 4 part series.
Right. It's like, so it's no one said the journey would be easy. No one said it would be without challenge. We may even bump our heads and fall a couple of times, but the fact that you just summed it up to say it's worth it. And now look where you are. And I hope that today's, as you guys are listening to this episode, that it's going to push you and challenge you to check in with yourself. Are you where you need to be? Are you where you're supposed to be? Or is there something else that's pulling you and calling you that you know is the pivot that you need to go towards? And what steps can you take to do that? What conversations do you need to have with yourself? What conversations do you need to have with your support system, your family, right? What types of conversations or preparations do you need to start to think about so you can make that pivot? Will those conversations be easy? Maybe not. Will there be challenges around the resources that you need to gather, people, places, or things in order to get there? might be challenging, but it does not mean it won't be worth it in the end. And most pivots don't come without a challenge. Most pivots don't come without even a little inkling of fear to creep in, right?
Mm-hmm.
You hear people say all the time, like your goals and your ambitions should kind of like they should scare you a little bit. They should challenge you, but not from a negative space, from a place that pushes you, right? And that shiver just gets you excited because you know there's something great to come on the other side of that pivot. Oh, I love it. Okay. So tell us, Ebere, how can people connect with you? How can they follow your journey? Because like I've been following for a bit, but it's gonna take another pivot. It's gonna take another little shift because residency is no joke. I worked in a level 1 pediatric trauma center for about 10 years, and I have a ton of colleagues and friends who are nurse practitioners and physicians and anesthesiologists and others. And so watching residents come in, like first year residents come in, what was interesting. And it was very interesting to see. And it's a different journey. And I was seeing, I was in a pediatric hospital, so I was seeing like our pediatric residencies, and it was just always interesting. So I know you have a journey ahead of you, and I know you'll be sharing with us through that journey. But tell me, what's the best way? How can people stay connected with you? How can they follow your journey?
Yeah, I am most active on Instagram right now. So at Dr. Ebere Sonoiki. But I'm also on Facebook at Dr. Ebere Sonoiki. I'm on YouTube at Dr. Ebere Sonoiki. I'm on TikTok at Dr. Ebere Sonoiki. And I'm excited about what the future holds. And you may not, I may be under a rock for the first few months of residency, and you may or may not, hear from me. But I will definitely. I think the beautiful thing about this journey for me, first 3 years of med school, I was nowhere on social media because it was just, I needed to prioritize the things that I needed to do in that season. Now that fourth year is here and my schedule has freed up, I've been able to, I'm sharing my journey just so people know it can be done. Yes. And my goal in my different platforms is really, when you come in contact with my content, I want you to feel empowered. I don't ever want you to look at my story and then feel bad about your life. I want you to look at my story and feel empowered about what you can do. And so I hope that that's what you get when you interface with any of my platforms. And that's what you're going to keep getting. But even when I'm crying and when I'm dying and whatever the process is, we're going to do it together and you're going to be empowered as a result. But I look forward to meeting and getting to know you guys on my platforms. Definitely check me out there.
Awesome. And this information is also in the show notes, guys. So you can go be sure that you are following, engaging, and doing so from a place of inspiration and empowerment. And to her point, you might not see her right at the beginning of residency, but there's a ton of content to go back and to really look at and engage with. So engage. I hope this episode was great. I hope this was exciting for you. I hope that if anything, it helped you see that pivoting can happen no matter your age, no matter the season it is in your life. If you are a wife, a husband, if you are a mother, a father, a caretaker, no matter where you are, it's not, is this the right time? It's about timing and you being in touch with the timing and the calling over your life and not just settling and waiting for things to get better, but actually pursuing the dreams that you want to achieve, not just in your career, but in your life as a whole. So this has been another episode of the DNA of a Professional, and you know how I feel about you. You have everything inside of you to be your best and unique self. What is that? Your professional DNA, your defined natural abilities to succeed, your defined natural ability to kick butt, your defined natural ability to unapologetically pursue your dreams. I know you can do it. Until next time, bye.